Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 24th episode of the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. I'm your host, Gene Jackson. And once again, join me in welcoming my co-hosts, the masters of podcast terror themselves, Josh Browley and Richard Mulliken of P3 Radio. Guys, how are we doing this morning?
Oh,
Pretty
man.
good, man.
Oh, yeah. Doing great. Doing great.
So for people who don't know, we record these, or at least we fell into a schedule of recording these early on Sunday mornings now. So while the rest of you are out there at church and sleeping, doing whatever you do on Sunday morning, we're up early making you some fun podcast times, or at least we hope they're fun anyway. So, but sometimes if it seems like we're dragging, I've noticed, I've gone back and watched a couple of these, and I look like hell, like bags under my eyes, and I look like I've been up for 3 days, and that's why, folks, because usually I've slept for 3 hours on Saturday night and I'm up on Sunday morning, and here we are. So we're not complaining, just giving you a little bit of insight into if it seems like it takes us a little bit of time to get going on these things, that would be why. But I got a feeling we're going to get going on today's episode. There's some fun stuff here. But before we get started, on this week's USWA episode, I want to thank everybody who joined us for our Facebook live stream watch along. Of course, as Richard and Josh look confused, that hasn't happened yet as we record this, but by the time this comes out, unless you subscribe to the WrestleCopia Patreon, and you may still see this before the live stream happens. Otherwise, by the time you're seeing this and hearing this, it will have already happened. So if you joined us, thank you. If nobody joined us, then next week's you'll hear us bitching about how nobody joined us for our live stream, and we were sitting there with our dicks in our hand for an hour talking about USWA matches as nobody watched. But we're going to assume everybody tuned in. They had a great time. It was a rousing success. We had so many people join us that it knocked the Facebook server off and probably killed the show halfway through. And if that's what happens, we certainly apologize. But regardless, you can go back and see for yourself how it turned out at any time over on our Facebook page at facebook.com/retro wrestling review. And if you haven't already, please follow the page. We post a ton of great USWA related content over there, and over on the USWA Universe Facebook group. If you haven't joined it yet, please do. We'd love to have you in there for some of the fun discussions and content that gets shared there as well, involving one of our favorite things, which, of course, is old school USWA wrestling. And it would certainly mean a lot to us, and it really would help us out a lot if you would take a moment to rate and leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you choose to ingest the show, if you will. If you'll give us a quick review and maybe give us a good rating, we'd appreciate it. It'd help things out. And last but not least, I neglect to talk about this directly. We run the commercials every week, but I just wanted to say, because I don't say it here enough, that we are proud to be a part of the WrestleCopia podcast network. Make sure you go over to WrestleCopia.com and check out all the great wrestling content our buddy Ray Russell offers up over there. You'll be glad you did. Now, having said all that, before we get going on this week's show, I feel the need to make a correction from last week's show. When we were going through the results of last week's Mid-South Coliseum card, the results that I found online at the result site that I use every show for the Monday night cards said that Steve Dahl pinned Jerry Lawler to retain the tag team titles. Well, as we learned on this week's show, guys, from the highlights from last week, that wasn't true. Coco was the one who got pinned by Steve Dahl. So, yes, if you're trying to remember back to last week, Coco did get lynched on TV and then proceeded to go down the Coliseum on Monday night, take the pinfall for the team as well. So,
well, Lawler, Coco, I mean, I could see how they'd look the same from the top of the stands, right?
Hey, another round in that tanning bed, and that's quite possible.
Dude, Tan
Polynesian Jerry.
Full effect.
So my apologies for spreading false information that Jerry Lawler would have gotten pinned in a tag team match at the Mid-South Coliseum. I honestly should have known better. When I read that, I should have did my due diligence and second guessed that and asked some people if that was true. But normally I might have shot a message to Kevin Lawler and said, hey, did your dad get pinned in a tag team match at the Coliseum? But Kevin wouldn't have known because at this point he was up in Philadelphia playing Freddie Gilbert, so he wasn't here right now. And that's why all of a sudden TD Steele's out there as a referee, as you pointed out in the past. So, guys, with all that out of the way, we can finally head back to May 13th, 1993, to a show that brought us some new faces to the USWA and brought back some familiar faces we haven't seen in a while. The show opens on a somber note as we see Dave Brown and the King, who's dressed all in black, but yet still has his gimmick crown with him for some reason. But they inform us that longtime head of security, Ernie Everhart, my apologies, Ernie Everhart has passed away this week, and in fact, his funeral would be taking place that day. Thought it was a classy move when the King said, instead of the traditional moment of silence for Ernie, Lawler led the studio audience in a round of applause in his memory. And then we see a few clips of Ernie on the Jerry Lawler Show.
Yeah, man, that got it off to just, like you said, a somber note. And I was on the verge of shedding a tear, man, because, since I can remember, Big Ernie's there. Big Ernie was falling on the studio floor, getting tripped up by Sherry and Randy Savage, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And that was the last time we seen Big Ernie. But yeah, man, I always enjoyed, King would make it a point whenever Big Ernie would get a haircut tribute to him. Just for whatever occasion, they would always zoom in on Ernie's haircut. That was always a fun thing. Just sad, man.
Can y'all promise me that if something happens to me, you'll find some better clips than what they found of Ernie in this thing? Because it felt like they were, memorializing the woman that was on the show with Lawler.
Yes.
More than Ernie. Ernie's like in the background. They're like, look at Ernie having fun, and he's just standing back there. Today on the show, we're gonna talk to Jerry.
Is that
Jesus Christ.
Is that Lawler's ex-wife?
I don't think so. I don't know who she was, but no, that's not his ex-wife. I don't believe so, unless I'm way off base. But I was hoping one of y'all was going to point that out. I was going to pitch it to y'all, and if nobody pointed out, I was going to say it. But yeah, absolutely. The highlight reel of Ernie was just this lady talking with Ernie on camera in the vicinity enough to be like, there he was.
Yeah. I think we got some shots of him. There's one from him 300 yards away in the background.
You can see his massive arms right behind her head in this shot right here, which might have gave some insight into what happened. I don't know. Now, you pointed out something I didn't think about, but yeah, the last time we actually saw Big Ern on camera, he was getting beat up by Savage and Sherry. Now, we don't want to implicate them in anything, but I mean, statute of limitations, they're both gone, right? I mean, they're all gone, so who knows?
ID channel.
Maybe they got it all sorted out in heaven.
Well, let's certainly hope so.
Or wherever they are.
We're gonna assume that's where they are. But okay, well, this is taking a dark turn off early. So from there, my copy of this show jumped right out of those clips into Dave being joined by Johnny Polo and Brian Christopher. And this was a lot of fun. One fun aspect to me was the fact that even Scotty couldn't exactly keep the name straight as to when he should be calling himself one or the other. Like at one point he called himself Scotty when he clearly should have been saying Johnny, and then he corrected himself mid-sentence and was like, yeah, because Brian knew that he was the only one. And but let's take a look at a little clip of some of these shenanigans here with Johnny Polo, Scotty Flamingo, Brian, and of course Dave Brown
is here, and I don't know if I'm talking to Scotty Flamingo or Johnny Polo.
You idiot!
Johnny
now,
Polo.
Give me this. Now the reason I'm out here, Brian, I know you're kind of wondering yourself why you're out here, but I needed you out here because I gotta say I'm in the greatest mood, Dave Brown. I'm ecstatic. I am like the happiest camper running about, and it's all because of my best friend Brian Christopher. See, my best friend Brian Christopher, everyone knows, me and him ride up and down the highways, we fly planes together, we do everything together, I mean, everything. And, well, a couple weeks ago, I was a little depressed. I was in a bit of a blue funk, I was sad, I was blue. And, well, Brian Christopher, this philosopher, this wise man, he said to me, Scotty, I know why you're depressed, because you're not being yourself. He said, you got to be Johnny Polo, what you are. You're being Scotty Flamingo. You're trying to please all these people, all these fans. He goes, you notice, I never try and please the fans. I do what I want to do. I say what I want to say, and that's why I'm so successful. And Scotty, and he started calling me Johnny because that's my real name. He said, Johnny, he's the only one that knew. He said, Johnny, you got to be yourself. You got to be Johnny Polo. And ever since then, man, I've been so happy. I've been ecstatic, man. My life has turned around. Everything's going great for me. The world has changed. Man, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. My best friend. Oh, it's great, Dave. And now, so I think to myself, I said, man, I got to repay Brian Christopher for giving Johnny Polo back his life. Now he's made me a happy man. And hold on, wait right here, hold on. Brian, do you know what this is?
Yeah, that's a broom.
Look at that, Dave. He knows what it is. He knows that this is a broom. Not only is he a philosopher, but he's a very bright man.
I can tell.
Do you know what this is, Brian?
The mop.
Look at that, he knows. That's a mop.
You got it too.
See, everyone knows what these things are, but it's like a tragedy because I never knew what these things were. I didn't know what these cleaning supplies, these implements, these tools of the bourgeoisie were. I had no idea because I'd always led a pampered life. Ever since I was a little baby in my crib, my parents used to have English nannies come and take care of me. They'd powder my bottom. You know, they would tuck me in. If I got a little scared at night, you know, they would tell me a bedtime story, tell me everything was okay. They'd read me a little, sing me a little lullaby. And they took care of me all through my entire life.
All right, now we're going to come back to this promo here in just a second, but I wanted to stop it for just a moment before we get too caught up in what happens next. We mentioned last week that the very nice-looking Southern heavyweight title belt had suddenly went AWOL. Brian was here with no belt last week. Now, as you can see, he's wearing the belt that we kind of touched on last week. Josh described it as being square, and that was dead on because seeing this picture here, there's Brian wearing. Now, clearly that's something they got made at a trophy shop, wouldn't you think? I mean, that's not a Dave Milliken belt.
No, that's a emergency belt. But I was just telling Richard, like throughout this the little break, going from the title that they went from to that, like they should have known, being that they're on TV, their shit's in magazines and stuff. This is going to make us look bad. I remember being a child just absolutely tore up that they had the ugly belt now.
So the first time I saw this, I was wondering, you know, where in the hell Johnny Polo is going with all this, bringing out a mop and a broom and mentioning English nannies. But things take a turn right about here. And, well, let's see what all this is building toward, shall we?
And now, you know, when I was 16, I got to pick my own nannies. That's pretty cool. Anyway, but now I want to repay Brian Christopher for all he's done for Johnny Polo, and I want to give you my nanny.
No, I don't need a nanny.
No. I got three. I got three of them. It's okay. I'll give you one of them. Look, I'm telling you.
No, I don't want no old English lady messing with my stuff. I don't need a nanny. Seriously,
look, Brian, we're best friends, right?
I really don't need one, Scotty.
Look, we're best friends. Try it out. Just try for 2 or 3 weeks. If it don't work, okay? If it don't work, well then we'll say we tried and it didn't work. But it's the least I can do to repay you for what you've done to me. Made me Johnny Polo again.
See here, friends. Scotty Flamingo, I want to call him. Johnny Polo's nanny coming out here to repay Brian Christopher. Oh, my goodness. To repay Brian Christopher.
Okay, Brian, okay. Open your eyes. Here's your new nanny.
Oh.
Yeah, I told you, man. It's great, isn't it? Look at her.
That's nothing like what I expected.
You know, she'll take care of you. She'll tuck you in at night. You know, she'll sing you a little story. She'll sing you a little lullaby. She'll tell you stories. She'll dust. She'll clean. She'll wax the car. You know, if you got a hair out of place, she'll fix it. Just like that. Show him.
Just like that.
Miss Simpson is the best nanny in the whole nannying profession, and she's all yours.
I don't know what to say, Scotty, except thank you.
Man. Oh, come on.
Look at that. Look how happy he is. That's the kind of joy. Take her with you. Look at the joy he's brought me. I'm bringing him some joy, Dave. I feel like Santa Claus today, man. This is great. Let's go to commercial because I want to go back and talk to him. Man, this is great.
Well, going to commercial is one of the better ideas I've heard the last 4 or 5 minutes. Let's do that, and we'll be back with.
Oh, jingle.
So those guys had to set a record for like HPM hugs per minute during that promo there. So I'll let y'all speak first on this. What's your take on this?
I swear, I thought it was a setup. Like I thought I'd forgot something, and this was the big heel turn. Because whenever Scotty's asking Brian, "Do you know what this is?" It's a broom. It's like Brian's demeanor changed. It was almost like Brian thought something was like for real happening that he wasn't cued in on or something. And then, you know what this is? And that's a mop. Like it felt like it was weird. And then, what happened. Like I told Richard that was my dream. Being it was Scotty said, when I was 16, I got to pick my own nanny. Oh yes, yeah. Only in my dreams.
Josh is what we have what he's called, what I call chronic horn dog syndrome. That woman could have looked like a foot, and Josh would be like, "Oh God, look at her in that nanny outfit."
No,
Oh yeah,
wrong.
like we
It's
covered
a
on
beautiful blonde woman.
we covered
man.
on P3 radio every once in a while, and I mean there was a Jardians commercial this week that we covered in depth, and Josh was like, "Yep, that redheaded chick could get it," and you're like, "Jesus, Josh."
She's just chubby redhead. Be all right.
You're just looking for something to put it in. That's what you're doing.
Old dog likes to sniff.
But I couldn't get past the fact that fucking Brian's wearing a dinner plate on his waist. I told Josh earlier, I was like, that thing looks like a church plaque or something. Like what would be up there, in front of, like, on the wall, who gave the offerings this week and how much they were in the building fund. Look at that.
I see it as like a chili cook-off trophy.
Or something that's like on a Rolls Royce bumper.
Oh, Miss Simpson.
It's something.
It's a shame.
Brian sold it perfect though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
his reaction when he takes the hands down over his eyes, you'd swear that was literally the first time he's seen her.
It's the same shame she was beheaded a few months later.
That's the wrong
by
Simpson.
OJ. Oh, wrong Simpson.
Yeah,
You're
that's
looking for
another
Nicole
blonde
Brown.
lady named Simpson. A couple years down the line. But yeah, Johnny Polo has gifted Brian Christopher Miss Simpson, who would go on to be appropriately referred to as Nanny Simpson. And Brian couldn't be happier, and who could blame him here? Quite the segment. But yeah, what a weird way to get into it. I was like you, Josh, when he comes out with the mop and the broom and the "do you know what this is?" and all that. I was like, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
And it's funny to me, like he came out one time 2 weeks ago in the polo outfit, and ever since he's just looked exactly and acted exactly like Scotty Flamingo, which kind of makes sense why nobody can remember to say the right name, because he's exactly the same guy he was before he walked out in that polo suit abruptly that morning. And hey, I'm Johnny Polo now. And then he's never really acted like that since. But so for you people who are watching the show right now, who saw the clip, or if you went back, I know a lot of people tell me that they like to either before or after the show, they'll go back on YouTube on the Retro Wrestling Archive channel and watch the actual episode that we're watching. And so I'm sure some of you are thinking, that Miss Simpson looks familiar. Well, she should. You may recognize her from World Class Championship Wrestling as Gentleman Chris Adams' wife, Tony Adams. She met Chris Adams while working for World Class as a production assistant in 1984, and then they would go on to be married in Hawaii. Initially, she only appeared on camera a couple of times in World Class, playing Adams' wife in '86 when they did the angle where Gino Hernandez blinded Chris, and she's seen getting him in and out of the car and a couple of segments there. And then later, when Chris went to Bill Watts' UWF, she had a small on-camera role doing interviews. She would interview fans. She'd interview some of the wrestlers. And then later, of course, what she's most known for prior to this, when Chris Adams returned to World Class in 1989, she became his valet/manager. which eventually led to Chris bringing in his ex-wife, Jeannie Clark, for a feud between his wife and his ex-wife that actually managed to draw some houses in what was the dying end of the USWA territory down there after the changeover when Jerry Jarrett had bought it out. And they ended up pairing Jeannie with a Chris Adams Wrestling Academy student named Steve Austin. And they would have a pretty big feud. Like I say, I'm not going to say it resurrected the territory, but it drew some houses for the first time in quite a while and was kind of turning things around. Ironically, Austin would go on to marry Jeannie Clark, and Adams would go on to divorce Tony in 1991 after an assault charge that would land Chris Adams on a year's probation. And Tony kind of disappeared from the wrestling business until here today when she showed up in Memphis playing a British nanny, despite the fact she's actually a native of Texas, where Chris Adams met her.
Yeah, that was a pretty shitty impersonation of a British accent she was doing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we even needed that. I don't even know why we had to portray her as British, but I guess she lived with a British dude long enough. She's like, "Hey, well, I can do the accent all right." And they're like, "Not really. It kind of sounds Australian, but whatever. Just keep looking like that and you'll be fine."
Yeah.
So we go to a break, and when we return, Dave lets us know the USWA will be having a new segment called Jennifer on the Road, and they show a video that I assume had copyrighted music accompanying it because the clip's silent here on YouTube. But anyway,
I think it was
Jennifer,
I'm So Excited.
Yeah, we get a hint of it at the end there now that you mention it. Jennifer is a young blonde who will be doing these on-the-road segments as well as providing gossip reports for the new 1-900 number that we kicked off last week. Here's her telling us what she has planned.
I'm so excited. I'm all packed and ready to go. Now, as you already know, when the wrestlers are at work, they wrestle. Well, what I'm going to find out is what the wrestlers do in their spare time. I've already found out some of them like to fish, play golf, and hunt. And I think you'll really enjoy seeing what the wrestlers do when they're not at work. So why don't you all come along?
I'm so excited, and I just can't hide.
Wouldn't it be funny if next week she was on the screen smoking a cigarette, looking disturbed? Like, some of these people aren't good people, y'all.
I was just about to say, a young, attractive girl going around trying to interview and get dirt on a bunch of wrestlers. What could possibly go wrong?
How many wrestlers' wives do you think are going to end up calling this just to get the lowdown on what they think the truth is?
Oh, I'm sure that's probably who it's marketed towards for the most part. It's like, all right, so wrestlers' wives and other rats are going to be calling to see who's banging who, and we'll get paid for it because they're already making all those calls amongst themselves anyway. And Jerry Jarrett's like, how can we make this work for us?
How can we put a meter on this?
So who is that young lady, Gene? Do you know?
I'm still working on trying to find that out. I haven't been able to get a definitive answer. Some people speculate that she's Jennifer Jarrett, daughter of Jerry Jarrett, who time-wise, this would have been about the age she was. So I don't know that to be a fact just yet. But that's
Richard's
when I did my research online. That was
the guy that called me a horn dog.
No, I was
segment is like all monotone. I wonder who this young woman is.
No, I was saying I wonder who she is because we've never seen her. I don't think she shows up later.
She looks like somebody.
Yes.
I thought maybe Lawler's love interest, but
I mean, I can see why you would assume that.
Young blonde.
Yeah, young. We'll speculate some more on that. I kind of, that's the only theory I found online, and I kind of subscribe to that theory until something else happens, and we'll get to that in a moment. And I'll tell you why I don't think that it may not be Jerry Jarrett's daughter for a very particular reason, but we'll see. But right now, let's take our first podcast commercial break, and when we return, we'll see old Double J. Get ready.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up and coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
Okay, so I'm assuming you guys understand that we introduced a blonde named Miss Simpson in the previous segment. And now we've just introduced another blonde named Jennifer in the last segment, correct?
Yeah.
I don't think Corey Macklin quite understands that, because in the next segment that we're about to cover, he's continually referring to Miss Simpson as Jennifer Simpson when she comes out, even though no one has implied that her first name is Jennifer, which led me to believe Corey doesn't realize that these 2 blonde white ladies that we saw aren't the same blonde white lady, because he continues to call her Jennifer Simpson throughout this next match we're about to see. And then eventually he abruptly stops, which means somebody, to me, I'm thinking, got in his earpiece like, Corey, her name's not Jennifer. That's a different chick. And I'm sure Corey's like, hell, I don't know. All these blonde white ladies look the same to me. Hell.
She's either doing nanny dirt jobs or she's doing giving the dirt on people. She's dealing with dirt. I don't know what it is.
So let's take a look at this clip here as Jeff Jarrett comes out sporting his coat of many colors, aka his coat of 1,000 Post-it notes is what I prefer to call it. But he's supposed to be headed to the ring to actually wrestle Johnny Polo. But again, he stops at the desk to harp on how Brian Christopher doesn't respect legends like Jackie Fargo and Jerry Lawler, which brings out Brian and Miss Simpson. And Brian's calling Jeff a big liar. And then this immediately makes this turn into one of those segments we saw back when we started all this at the beginning of 1993, where Brian's trying to get Jeff to put his hair on the line. And then he says he does respect legends and he can prove it by bringing out the legend Tony Falk. He's sporting a hell of a mullet in this era and looking quite a bit bigger than I remembered him from the last time we had seen him on USWA TV. And by the time we get done with this promo, the Johnny Polo match is off, and now it's Jeff Jarrett versus the legend Tony Falk. And if Jarrett can beat Tony Falk, he'll get a shot at the big square Southern heavyweight title, which, I mean, I'm sure we're coming off like a belt mark to some people now, but I don't know that I'm even excited about challenging for the Southern heavyweight title if I got to wear this dinner platter around my waist. But
you know what? You can keep it, Brian. I think I'm going to go for something else.
I don't want my picture taken with that damn thing.
I mean, we were talking about this when you had to step out and handle something for a minute, Richard. Like, Josh was like, you know, how we tell you the story of how Brian like handed us his Southern title and we got to hold it during a match one time. Like, I think if he went to hand us that one, we were like, no, we're good.
I'd have just dropped it on purpose.
Just pull my pants down and shit on it like it should have been done.
But I mean, you could have sat in your lap and ate your hot dog and nachos off of it.
Stop putting ketchup on my belt, fatto.
It looks like those TV trays I used to have when I was a kid that had the Dukes of Hazzard on it, and I'd sit it down in front of me and eat my peanut butter and jelly sandwich while I watched Dukes of Hazzard. Ironically,
it definitely looks like something we would have made like in like VBS camp. Like we're gonna spray paint it and glue macaroni to it. You know, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, because they would expect the other kids to make some sort of, something religious related or whatever. And then guys like us have been like, I made a Southern heavyweight title out of mine. They're like, oh, pray for this kid. Oh, Jesus.
Southern heavyweight title.
Like, I don't even know what that means, but you're probably going to hell, son. Just immediately ask for forgiveness. I don't even want to know. All right, let's hear this clip right here, and all hell kind of breaks loose before this is over, guys. Check this out.
Interfering. Four-legged Polo over nailing away on Jeff Jarrett. Christopher and Jennifer Simpson may not be out here, but Polo interfering in the bout between Falk and Jeff. He's got Polo outside of the ring, slams him into the apron there. Here comes Jennifer Simpson telling Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, Miss Simpson, I don't know what she said, but she was upset that Johnny Polo was getting blasted by Jeff Jarrett. Oh, look at that. Henson has got a broom.
Yeah. Oh, boy, she broke that broom on Jeff Jarrett. Jennifer Simpson did. Jarrett grabs a hold to the broom. Jabs her with it. He's going out to Jennifer Simpson. And
Simpson here with a mop now.
Miss Simpson got that mop on Jeff. Swings out to Jeff. Jarrett gets it from her. Goes over and grabs Miss Simpson now. Oh, here's Eddie Marlin back out, though.
There she goes in the ring. Brian Christopher hanging on to Eddie Marlin. They've got Jeff double team. They've got him down. She's got something here. We've rung the bell, TD. It's over.
Yeah,
it's
we
been
rung
a
the bell.
disqualification when Johnny Polo hit the ring. Falk was disqualified. But meanwhile, what she's spraying in his face.
Slams down on Jeff there with it. Boy, look at her run away on Jeff. Jarrett got stuff all over his face. And boy, Miss Simpson breaks the broom. Look out now. Here comes Miss Texas.
Miss Texas will even that up real quick as she goes after Miss Simpson. Look at that. Brian Christopher, look out, grabs Miss Texas. Oh, he hit her with a fist right in the face.
Come on, Brian, would ya? Oh, man, that is ridiculous, I tell you.
Corey was pissed.
That is the most.
Brian!
I was gonna say that is the most serious, ridiculous we've heard out of Corey. Like he said, that was some conviction. Holy crap! A lot happening right there for us to kind of cover.
No broom safe.
I tell you what, I feel like based on a lot of the stories we hear, you watch that Dark Side of the Ring. I bet Tony Adams warped Chris Adams with a freaking broom more than once, and that's how she came to be so adept at swinging brooms. She was knocking the hell out of poor Jeff with that broom enough that he looked like he got both times he got hit. He jumped up and went after mad, like legitimately. I've always respected Eddie Marlin for the fact that every time two chicks get in a fight, he always comes and hooks one by the waist and drags them off. That's like what he always signs up for. Like, don't worry, I'll break them up. I got this.
Well, I love that he just like straight up had Tony Adams by the hair, and it's like he rears his hand back and asks the crowd, "You want me to hit her?" And everybody's like, "Yeah,
whoop that bitch."
Is this the first time we've ever seen tire foam in a Memphis ring?
Dave only does outside man shit. That's why he assumed it was tire foam. It could.
Why would a nanny have tire foam?
Obviously, bathroom cleaner.
Through the first watch of this, I was like, tire foam? Why are we calling this tire foam? Why the hell has she got tire? And then when I rewatched it to do the clips, I noticed Scotty said she'll sweep, she'll mop, she'll clean your car. So that's the only relation Tire Foam has to any of this, but it's still a stretch because I'm sure that was like shaving cream or whipped cream or some crap,
Yeah.
truth be told, but still, it's
Well, you-
seems so odd and out of place.
You can tell it's not Tire Foam when Jarrett comes back later and his face isn't shiny as hell.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's that giveaway. Why is
Yeah,
it like you've been through a rainstorm or a puddle, Jeff? It's that damn Tire Foam, Jerry.
Why aren't you blind, Jeff? Why isn't your face melted off? Like it's supposed to eat tire grit off a tire, but it just annoyed you slightly, it seems.
Got my hair
But-
messed up.
I mean, you guys agree with the whole Jennifer Simpson thing that clearly Corey thought this was the same chick because why else would he tie the two names together? And it's like, no, Corey, one chick's here to get dirt for the hotline, the other's here to clean it up for Brian. It's two different women.
Yeah,
All
I think
right, whatever.
He was just focused on his formats or something while all this was going on. And he just kind of was half in, half out. So, yeah, Jennifer Simpson, yeah.
Why the hell would you bring two blonde women out here on the same show? Spread this shit out a little bit. But boy, Miss Texas comes out there and lays into Miss Jennifer Simpson, and she got her ass fucked up by Brian Christopher, son. He clocked her with that punch and then slammed the hell out of her. God almighty.
And Corey was like, that is my cousin mad. Like, that is ridiculous, Brian. Get out of here. I mean,
Corey's like, we got a commercial break, Brian. I'm finna whoop your ass with that big ass square belt of yours.
Oh my God.
Josh, why did your Corey Backlund sound a little like Bill Cosby?
Because I didn't want to get too much into it because we're essentially podcasting in a library. We can't be too loud.
Tire foam and
Put the Tire Foam in the drink.
Just be glad I wasn't making drinks.
Oh man. So
That segment couldn't have gotten any wilder. Only, if you would have had Bill Cosby out there fixing drinks, that would have made it wilder.
Well, she brought out a broom, a mop, another broom. I was expecting a vacuum cleaner, like a dust buster, something.
I was like, just have her bring it out in a garbage can like New Jack. Because here comes Miss Simpson with a garbage can full of brooms and mops and tire foam and all this shit. And she just beats
has
dirt with
that
all
like
of it.
helper caddy like the custodians usually have.
What if she had taken a towel, sprayed Windex on it, and held it over Jeff's mouth?
God, they should have just stole her one of those carts from the local hotel and she just rolls it out there and just hands out the plunder, if you will. But after the break, the King comes out to talk about all the action from around the area. And of course, we get some softball talk. And the Monday night cards are drawing so poorly. The crowds are so abysmal that now he's even mentioning at these appearances at the softball games when we'll be down at the, pizza place or whatever. We're going to be handing out free tickets to the Monday night show. So come on out and get those free tickets. So that's when times are bad, when we're having, free tickets handed out by the handful at these events. But Corey goes on to tell us everywhere that they're headed in the USWA. And then we move on past that. So during the commercial break that we had, they aired a commercial for this hotline. And I swear when it first came on, it's Miss Jennifer sitting in a chair at a table. I swear I thought it was one of those old 1-900 commercials that used to pop up during shit like USA Up All Night. Are you lonely? Hot women in your area are waiting to talk to you right now about who's fucking who in the USWA. It's crazy. Just listen to this real quick, folks.
Okay, thanks for calling. And don't forget to call back next week and I'll have some more gossip for you. USWA has given me the opportunity to travel all over the country interviewing the wrestlers when they're not in the ring. And you would not believe the gossip that I have heard. I found out who's dating who's really married and who's not, who's leaving the USWA and who's coming. And if you would like for me to share some of this gossip with you, you can call the USWA hotline. Now kids, if you're under 18, don't forget to check with your parents. Oops, I have another call. Hi, this is Jennifer.
Why'd they put her in a call center?
I just got a question. Do you have TeamViewer?
I mean, so are you supposed to believe that as these calls to the hotline comes in, she's answering them all one by one? It's not a recording. You're actually mean, these people are going to call expecting to talk to this chick,
On them
which
old
is probably
little
what they're hoping for.
fucking salon phones or whatever.
I'm gonna ask you, honey, not to redeem that gift card.
Based on the kind of stuff she's promising to tell, it was a poor choice of words to go, you'll find out who's going from the USWA and who's coming. And then big long pause of like, okay. I knew that was the implication, but you pretty much just spelled it out right there. Good grief. But definitely tells
Find
she
out
wasn't
if
taking
Mike
that
Miller
stuff.
really was having threesomes with those two women.
I'll tell you all the disgusting details. Yeah. So after that, we find out that after being AWOL for a couple of weeks, Mike Samples is back, and this time he hasn't brought a Russian brute with him, but instead he's brought a high school principal. Check this out.
Well, this is Mike Samples right here with, I suppose you're going to introduce the person who's with you here, huh?
Dave Brown, let me get right to the heart of the matter. I want everybody here to know what's going on and you to know what's going on because you seem to always be uninformed. And the people at home, I want them to know exactly what's happening. I want to introduce him. You're correct. He's Mr. C.W. Bergstrom, but I need to tell you just a little bit about this man so you understand exactly why he's here. Mr. Bergstrom was formerly known as Principal Bergstrom. He was a principal at a school district in the state of Oregon. He is a master of discipline. If you spare the rod, you spoil the child. You've heard that. He does never spoil a child because he doesn't spare the rod. He used the leather strap, and he used it day after day after day until his students minded.
And Samples over in his corner now stepping up on the ring apron. Referee T.D. Steele is waiting. Freezer Thompson is waiting too. Mike Samples jawing at Free.
Bergstrom is here to give them the lesson that they need to learn. He's going to teach them discipline and respect. That's his job here now.
Mike Samples respect? Well, that's what we don't know, but we'll find out perhaps as this match continues here.
Boy, C.W. Bergstrom, Principal Bergstrom is about to get some respect from Freezer Thompson as he, boy, 1, 2, 3.
No excuse for this right here. Get him out of here. You brought him in here.
What he is famous for,
come on,
his
Mike,
disciplinary
get him outta
action.
here.
He is going to put the strap through everybody here, and he's starting here today. And if you don't like it, Dave, I suggest you and Corey Macklin get up in the ring and try to stop him.
Well, I tell you, I'm not going to try to stop him in the ring, but I don't like it. This is absolutely senseless. He won the match. He should win the match, get his hand raised, and get out of here along with you. T.D. Steele now finally sending him out of the ring.
Anybody else take a blue chew, or is that just me?
So once again, there's a lot to cover in this clip. First of all, I want to say before we get too far down the road and neglect this fact, good to see Freezer Thompson back on Memphis Wrestling for the first time in quite some time here. Fun fact, I once wrestled Freezer Thompson on our show in the middle of the afternoon at a dirt racetrack in Batesville, Mississippi. Or I'm sorry, I didn't. My good friend megastar Memphis Monroe wrestled Freezer Thompson in a match at a dirt track. So that was fun. So Mike Samples, we thought he was gone. He's not. He's back. And he has brought with him now a high school principal who apparently has been fired due to his questionable disciplinary actions. Sample says Bergstrom is a master of discipline, and he believes in spare the rod, spoil the child, and he never spares the rod, guys. And I'll tell you another master who believes if you spare the rod, you spoil children, and he's a master of... Never mind. We won't say who that guy is, but anyway. What do you guys think of principals? Exactly. What do you guys think of Principal C.W. Bergstrom?
I hate. I think the match went shorter than that long-winded explanation of who he was and what he had done. You couldn't pull that crap off today, though. It'd be like a quick Google. It's like, no, he didn't. There's no Bergstrom principal got in trouble for whipping somebody, I think I feel like this is going to be another Russian one and done thing, like the last time. Oh God! Don't tell me that.
Oh no.
I was praying.
Oh no, guys.
But he beat the man with the backdrop. Like
I was hoping you would mention that because
like,
that was his big. As if this character isn't underwhelming enough, his big finish was a backdrop.
it's like he dropped him on that diamond plate in the ring that Jeff fell on to lose the title a couple weeks ago. It's like Josh and me were talking. It was like he started whipping him because you were supposed to feed up for a DDT.
Well, no, I thought maybe the backdrop was just like Freezer got fucked up, and he's just like, it ain't going any further. That's why I just pinned him, and then he just started whipping his ass, like literally whipping him on the ass.
Just his ass, yeah.
I was just saying, I told Richard, I was like, man, he needs to whip him in the back like a man, whipping him on the ass like a child. Like, what the hell?
But
he's a principal.
So can we point out that in 2 weeks now we have had no, just follow me here. We have had a man try to hang two men try to hang a man with a belt. We have had a man give a woman to another man as property. We have had now 3 Southern lawyers appear on TV. And we've had another man of color getting whipped by a white man in suspenders with a belt
on his ass.
Like
in 1993, now 1963 Memphis, that might have been just another day at the office, but in 93,
yeah.
But yeah, if you take last week's Jeff Jarrett, C.W. Bergstrom, and Mike Samples, they are definitely ready for a courtroom scene, and in the heat of the night episode, or My Cousin Vinny or something. But yeah, we needed attorney Jeff Jarrett out here to put a stop to this for sure. Let me tell you something, C.W. I won't go into that again, but so C.W. Bergstrom, for people who followed wrestling in the magazines or like me have traded tapes since, C.W. Bergstrom was a Portland guy. So he was from Oregon. So that part of the story was true. I don't know that he even finished high school. He certainly didn't principal one, I wouldn't think. But anyway, he's a Portland guy they bring in. I've got a little more on him at the end that we'll talk about after the show. I don't want to get too deep into that here at the moment. I mean, guys, I think our only hope for this character is if he gets paired up with somebody, really good that can make him entertaining. And then maybe, hold on. All right. I just got word. We need to go back to the studio. We got somebody who's got something to say right now. Let's see who we're hearing from right now.
Go! I know you got a score or two to settle in the USWA too, huh?
Dave Brown, let me tell you something. I've got this match booked with Principal C.W. Bergstrom. Boy, this is a dream come true, baby. Because when I was a little toddler going to school, I had a principal just like you, Bergstrom. One the rule was 6 licks, but you like to give 60 licks. And you thought because I was an athlete, I needed more discipline. So they whipped me more. And if there's one thing I've always been looking forward to ever since I was a little toddler, and that's taking a strap and whipping that principal senseless. Right, have you kids ever been glad about the guy that got dismissed from Oregon because he's a child abuser? He doesn't know what discipline is. He gets his pleasure out of whipping little innocent children. And that's why...
Apparently you don't have any discipline yourself, okay? The way you're talking to me, you have no discipline.
I've got plenty
of
discipline.
respect.
And I'm going to show you some discipline.
Oh, is that right?
Hey, Samples!
Samples snuck around behind him
boy.
And glommed Gaylord across the back of the neck.
Yeah, and Bergstrom's got that strap. Slamming down on Gaylord with that strap while Mike Samples is holding him now. Oh, and Principal Bergstrom. Man, this kind of stuff. Come on, Samples.
So the wrestling principal is going to be feuding with Jeff fucking Gaylord. Lord help us all. What did you guys think of this fiasco?
It was entertaining to me. Like, it was dude. Jeff Gaylord had a few lines. I'll go into it later, but it was just absolute comedic gold to me.
But it wasn't supposed to be comedy.
Well, it's
I mean,
entertainment.
The
And
whole
it
"Hey kids, aren't principals lame" routine was even more unbearable to me than the never-ending promo from a few weeks back. I was wishing we had that promo back once this got going. The whole segment was awful.
Now watch me ollie this skateboard.
It's like Jeff Gaylord in 21 Jump Street. You know, like, I'm just a cool kid like you guys, dude.
And then
I
apparently
expect they should show him coming up on a school bus next week or something.
and apparently he has some unresolved issues with principals that just now came out.
I think anytime you refer to getting 6 licks, you need to finish with a paddle or with a belt. You believe instead of giving 6 licks, you like to give kids 60 licks. And I'm like, whoa, dude, that's going to end up on the hotline for sure. Or this chick ain't doing her job.
Jeff Gaylord's in the middle of a heated promo with his principal. He just starts crying. I was a boy. I was just a boy.
Come on out of here, Jeffrey. We'll talk about it in the dressing room. Yeah, I mean, Gaylord may have been the one that got physically whipped at the end of that segment, but I felt like we all took an ass beating watching that entire thing. So what specifically, Josh, did you find funny, or are we going to save that for the review later on?
It'll go under further review later.
Perfect. So Dave and Corey run down the card for Monday night, which we will as well shortly. But I need to mention that this week's card is going to feature a rematch with Simply Divine defending the tag team titles against Jerry the King Lawler and Coco Beware. And they mentioned that Burt Prentice will be in a straitjacket at ringside. Everyone, please make a mental note of that. More on that later.
A redneck straitjacket.
Yeah. So next segment, we go back, and this is where we actually see clips from last week's match, and we find out that it was poor Coco that got pinned by Steve Dahl, not Jerry Lawler. And then Lawler and Coco come out to promote this tag team match. And if it was me personally, wait a minute, before we get to this, I just got to point something out here. Is this not the god-awfulest outfit in the history of professional wrestling? Look at them. Look at them.
Sneakers with those boot
It's the socks. It's the socks that do it for me.
Yeah, that's what really says it. I mean, you look at this and you're like, well, that's bad, but I mean, I guess it's not terrible. And then you go, no, look at this. And you're like, holy, what is he wearing right now?
It's like a little Dutch boy almost.
I mean, Bergstrom should come out and beat his ass with a belt for wearing that. And I think we turned babyface at that point.
You're out of dress code.
I warned you about this last week. So Lawler and Coco are out here promoting their match against Simply Divine, and that Burt is going to be in a straitjacket. And again, I would have waited and sprung this on people Monday night, but Lawler says that Prentice's attorneys, Mike Samples and C.W. Bergstrom, I'm guessing, that's just purely speculation, but Prentice's attorneys have pointed out that Tennessee supposedly has some sort of law stating that you can't put somebody in a straitjacket in the state of Tennessee if they don't have some sort of proven mental defect. Are you guys aware of that? Have you? I mean,
no, I've been in several, but no, I've never been specifically told that.
So Lawler goes on to say that since they can't legally put him in a straitjacket, they're going to place a huge hefty trash bag over Prentice, and then allow fans to wrap him in duct tape and then tie him up with rope. Now, I have a theory on how this whole scenario has come about, but what do you guys have to say about this first?
The recipe that Lawler gives that they're going to do to Prentice is like what the mafia does whenever they're bagging up a body. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's really fucking bad. And if you can't get a straitjacket out here because of the legalities or whatever, like, just don't fucking have him in a straitjacket. Have him in a dog cage or something. You know?
I do want to say how sad it is right now that I am living in Tennessee, because I typed in straitjacket laws in Tennessee, and the first thing that comes up on Google is Tennessee.gov's boating regulations and safety concerns. It's like, straitjacket, what's that? You can use that to fish? Well, get out there, I guess. I don't. No, he's gonna take a trash bag, put it over the guy, and run duct tape around him. That seems way.
Let the fans do it. It's even worse because they're gonna lay it on extra tight.
What's the trash bag for? Is that just so his hair doesn't get caught up in the tape?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess it's to keep the tape and shit from touching him directly, and it keeps him bound up. I don't know. And first of all, if I'm Burt Prentice and I just got through going down the road trying to run opposition to them on Monday nights, I'm not letting them bind me up in any way, shape, or form because he's subject to get tossed off the freaking bridge over there going to West Memphis.
Or his jaw is going to accidentally get broken.
Yeah. I mean, because Lawler has a history of that, admittedly. The only thing I can figure is somebody must have suggested, all right, well, Prentice interfered last week. What if we did something like put him in a straitjacket? And then they're like, well, do you know how much a straitjacket costs? What, have you got a straitjacket in your closet? Like, well, here's what we'll do. Go out there and announce that Prentice is going to be in a straitjacket. And then I'll give him some bullshit legal reason why we can't use a straitjacket. And hell, we'll just put a damn trash bag around him and tape his ass up. But we can't just come out and advertise when Dave Brown's running the car. All right, so then in the next match, Simply Divine will take on Jerry Lawler and Coco Beware, and Burt Prentice is going to be duct taped in a hefty bag at ringside with a rope around him. It doesn't come off the same. So I see how we got here, but I think I'd have just said straitjacket, and then when we got there Monday night, you've already got the people's money. Be like, hey, turns out we can't put him in a straitjacket, so here's what I've come up with. But to come out with this explanation literally 2 minutes after we just announced this match feels weird.
Y'all cool if we just duct tape the shit out of him?
Hell yeah. That's called a McNairy County straitjacket where I'm from anyway, son. C.W. Bergstrom got fired from the school for putting the kid in one of those up in Portland.
He was trying to not spare the rod, if you know what I mean.
So when Coco gets his chance to talk, he gets as fired up as he did last week, but he did manage to not drop 2 hells or 2 dams, but he did literally threaten to murder Burt.
Because I tell you, when I get that rope around that fat neck of yours, I'm not going to stop. It's going to have to call the emergency, baby, to come get me off of you. Because I'm not going to stop. Because I told you, time is over with. Those days is gone. And Prentice, I know those 2 goofs don't have the sense enough to choke me to death. You told those boys to kill me. Well, damn it, I'm going to kill you if I get my neck around this rope around your neck.
All right, Coco's still upset about it. I understand there.
Get my neck around.
Get that neck around your... So again, somebody had just watched A Time to Kill or something, because this feels like a scene from that movie. Like Coco just found out his kid or his dog or his cat or something got raped, and now I'm gonna kill you. Them days is over with. He says that with such conviction,
You sent them boys to kill me.
Go ahead to call the emergency.
That was the funniest thing. It's like, what? Why do you assume Burt Prentice sent 2 guys in thongs to kill you, Coco? I mean, on live TV, no less. What a terrible place to do it.
Does seem like that fits the description of Burt's foot soldiers, though, doesn't it?
I mean, this is when we could have, nowadays they have these backstage cameras and everything, but back then they should have had a camera in the back, and Burt's like, okay, Jerry's in the shower. Y'all go out there and kill Coco right now on live TV. Okay, boss.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Oh man. Tie that neck around him.
Tie that neck around his
Until I get my neck around your rope.
You trying to tie your neck around my neck. Oh,
them days are over.
Yeah, them tying my neck around. That's over with. So then, of course, take a guess who comes out in the next segment. It's Bert Prentice and Simply Divine to respond. Bert's pretty fired up, actually. He calls Coco fat. And of course, he has to mention that Doll and King are gorgeous. Refers to himself as Houdini. And if he manages to get out of this trash bag, duct tape, rope combo, he certainly will be a modern day Houdini at that point. And then Rex King gets a chance to talk. So he doubles down on stealing the Grappler's closing line from his promo. So I guess that's a thing now for Simply Divine. Then they head to the ring to take on Sam Norris and Chris Holiday. I feel like there's been maybe a slight change in at least who's trying to book this show, because this big changeover in the roster and the fact that even enhancement guys, we're seeing some different people pop up here doing jobs. With, Freezer coming back and people like this Chris Holiday and whatnot. So anyway, by my count, this is only the third match of the entire wrestling show that we're about to cover here. I can't remember ever seeing Chris Holiday. I think this may be the first time we've seen him. I'm guessing this might be the last time we see him, because we're fixing to check out a clip here, and things don't go exactly as planned here on the old finishing maneuver of Simply Divine.
Slams him over to his corner, grabs Chris Hall from Simply Divine. Could have had about one about 2 minutes ago, this King and Doll. Doll setting up Chris Holiday. Rex King comes off on top of him. Boy, he rolls Holiday up. 1, 2, 3, and Rex King and Steve Doll, Simply Divine, get the win.
Was his fault?
Just buries his knee and shin right into that dude's throat.
It's not his fault you came off with a flying dick punch. I don't know.
Exactly. To be fair, I mean, and you guys can back me up on this. They teach you when you're training to wrestle to tuck your chin and on most things to keep from getting hurt. But that doesn't exactly work well for the old Rougeau brothers finish that Simply Divine's trying to bring back from the mothballs here. So it didn't exactly pan out, but they were not happy, and it could have went a heck of a lot worse than it did. But there's a look at them giving their promo earlier. Steve Doll with an interesting look on his face there.
Old school duck face.
Exactly, the original duck face. ODF. So I know we've had a lot of clips in this show, but next we hear quickly from Jeff Jarrett and Miss Texas, and I didn't plan on working another clip in, but you know me, I'm a sucker for a Miss Texas promo, so let's check this out real quick.
Whatever you tried to in my eyes, well, they put you in the ring, and that's what's going to happen Monday night. Yeah, and I don't make a habit of hitting ladies, but let me tell you...
Whoa, wait a minute, Jeff. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Miss Simpson, you bleach blonde bimbo. This here is the USWA, and this is Miss Texas territory. Now, when I get you in the ring, I'ma snatch you bald-headed, and then I'ma snatch that little maid uniform off to show your toothpick legs. And I'm going to see if Brian Christopher thinks you're so cute then.
Oh, I can't wait, Dave.
I can't wait either, Jeff. She's promised to snatch the maid. She has promised to snatch the maid uniform off Miss Simpson. She just sold more tickets with that one promo than anybody has in the last month, I'm sure. Anything you want to say about that promo before we run down the card?
She gonna snatch her bald headed.
Bleach blonde bimbo.
And Jeff, and when she said that line, he just like, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's an attack, but whatever. I mean, it feels real, and if anything, it's gonna be a cat fight, and we all know like there's a lot of people that'll pay to watch one of them.
It's true. Well, let's let Dave and Corey tell us the whole card and see what we're in for this Monday night, because this has been a pretty wild show today compared to some of the more recent episodes.
Whole thing here, and check it out. The revised card for the Mid-South Coliseum coming up Monday night right here. Opening match, no change here. Steve Marino, well, one change. Legend Tony Falk.
A living legend.
Yeah. Then the middleweight title will be at stake. The other of the Marino brothers, Bill Marino, will be challenging Danny Davis. Middleweight title hangs in the balance. Coming up after that, a hubcap on a pole match. The Masters of Terror going against PG-13. At all. This is new. Now this is going to be a belt on a pole match. Now the match was already scheduled. Jeff Gaylord against Principal C.W. Bergstrom. Mike Samples will be in Bergstrom's corner. But now they're going to put that belt up on a pole. I suppose that was probably a Jeff Gaylord's request. Miss Texas and Miss Simpson got into it in the ring there a few minutes ago. Makes this one very, very interesting now because it's not Brian Christopher against Jeff Jarrett. It is Brian Christopher and Miss Simpson. His nanny is a gift from Johnny Polo against Jeff Jarrett, and Miss Texas is going to be in there with Jeff. Then the USWA tag titles will be at stake. Simply Divine, Rex King, and Steve Dahl will be going against Jerry Lawler and Coco Beware. Look at the bottom line there. Bert Prentice will be in a straitjacket.
Boy, I wish you could keep him in that all of the time. Prentice will have it on Monday night.
All right, so we'll let you guys marinate on that for a minute while we take our last commercial break for the podcast, and then we're going to come back and talk about what you guys thought of this episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
Well, all right, guys, it's that time of the show where I have to ask you a few questions. So let's just get right to it. Guys, what was your least favorite part of today's episode?
I hate the principal. I hate the long-winded explanation about the principal. I hate it all. I hate the whole gimmick. It's just, he don't even dress like a principal. He was dressed like a Southern lawyer, like the Jeff Jarrett Southern lawyer thing from last week. It's the exact same outfit. Outside of that, I will say that I was a little disappointed we didn't have more matches this week. It felt like it was a long talk show. But yeah, the principal wins out is the worst thing on the show for me.
I'm gonna go with the yeast infection connection match. Like it just, dude, those tights. It's like I'd rather sleep with Magic Johnson's ex-girlfriend than have to watch one of those fucking matches. Those tights are eye cancer. Like it's horrible, and it felt like it made the match feel like it was 30 minutes long. And you know they almost killed the guy with the Rougeau brothers finish. Now I speculate it may have been the guy's fault, the jobber's fault, because I mean he knew what the finish was. Don't tuck your fucking chin. I could see Rex King in the back. Don't tuck your chin like you sucking my dick, or you gonna hurt yourself and me. And you know he was super lean forward. He should have just been straight up. Take that dick to the face. Go to the pay window, or you know just get it over with. And yeah, Rex almost killed him afterwards, trying to collapse his windpipe. But yeah, I like botches sometimes whenever ultimately nobody gets hurt, but that was just really fucking messy and messier, but not as messy as the tights.
Well, I mean, in that guy's defense, I mean, you said you don't like watching these guys in these thongs. I'm sure the first thing that popped in his mind when this big guy in a thong dives off is not, "Hey, throw my head back, open my mouth, and wait for it." You know, your instinct is going to be like, "Oh God, tuck my chin, get down low, and maybe that'll just graze my forehead as he comes across." You know, I won't get a mouthful of cock here on TV, but I get the spirit of what you're saying. Now I'm gonna have to say something here. I'm gonna have to call you out, Josh, and blame you for something here. I think you, in many ways, ruined this week's show because last week on this very program, you made the statement. Things are moving in a good direction. They've started having better matches. Now, every single week, we have at least one match where two guys who aren't jobbers
made it a point to do that.
do at least a 10-minute match that's a good competitive match that you would want to go see somewhere. And the very week after you say that, we have 3 matches. None of them were good. I mean, all right, let's think about it. The tag match you described was garbage. The C.W. Bergstrom beating up Freezer Thompson was garbage. And then the Jeff Jarrett Tony Falk match, okay, it's, you know, I guess you can call that a competitive match, but I mean, you did it. It was the first match. I mean, and poor Tony Falk, we all like Tony Falk, but I mean, he was known for being, that was his gimmick was, I mean, Jeff even pointed out, you know, he had the longest running losing streak of anyone. Probably not. He probably didn't break Freezer Thompson's losing streak, but as far as guys who were quote unquote featured. But I just thought that was funny when I realized we had 3 matches today and 2 out of 3 were absolute garbage. And the third one wasn't anything to write home about. And Josh had just pointed out that for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, we had some really good matches on TV. So it felt like we were heading in a good direction. And then they do this to us. So that's all the negative. Let's see if there's some positive. What is your most, not that there's going to be a great mystery what Josh's favorite part is, but what was your favorite part of today's episode?
Sadly, you said that's all the negative. My favorite part for all the wrong reasons was the Jeff Gaylord interview. Was how bad and how comically bad it was, and how I laughed out loud at how, you know, it was a Simpsons, you know, Simpsons segment where there's that guy trying to be too relatable to the crowd. Don't y'all hate principles? I laughed so hard. And I was like, this is supposed to be a rah-rah-ree babyface speech. But yeah, that was probably my most entertaining spot of the show. Was just watching him stumble for, sometimes that's entertaining. So that was my thing this week.
You stole it, man. That's what I've got wrote down here.
I'm shocked.
The Jeff Gaylord promo.
I actually saw one part of the video this week that I was like, that right there is Josh's favorite part. And it was where Miss Simpson was climbing into the ring and she was doing the elbows down, ass up type thing. Going through that bottom.
Yes.
I was like, that's Josh's favorite part. That's what we're going to hear.
That's the spot that would have got burnt on the tape. But no, that's not my favorite. It's Jeff Gaylord promo because I've got it written down here. He's trying so hard to be normal.
Yes.
It's like a fucking alien.
Yeah, but Principal Bergstrom is giving him flashbacks.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of underlying shit that Jeff went through, you know, back then, obviously. And he used to supposed to do 6 licks. That some bitch like CW do 60 on him. And then he's straight up, you didn't work this into the clip, Gene, but verbatim, Jeff Gaylord said, "You are a child abuser." I rewound that and rewound that and rewound that. I laughed so fucking much this week watching this. And like, you know, he said the other line was, "You get pleasure from whipping innocent children." There's so many sound drop potentials for this, you know. And then Samples and Bergstrom proceed to whip his literal ass, whip him on the ass. Like, I get it, but it I don't know. It seems weird, and like Richard said earlier, it's not supposed to be comical. Well, that's the way I take it. It's entertainment, and however entertainment hits me, if it
There's
makes me
no other
laugh,
way to take it. You either laugh at it or you're pissed because this is the stupidest shit you've ever seen on your TV. So you're either entertained for the wrong reason or you're just flat mad. That's the only two options there are here. Because I can't imagine. I would love to if somebody's listening or watching the show right now. If you're a fan of the show, and I promise we won't berate you. But if you can remember back in the day watching this and literally enjoying this or literally being a Jeff Gaylord fan, I'd love to hear from you. We might even figure out a way to get you on the show just to hear your side of it, because I go back and watch this stuff and I'm just like, how did this get over with anybody? And the more you learn about Gaylord as a person, the more it all makes sense. I mean, this isn't done for irony or anything like that. Like, this is just who this guy is. If you haven't listened to the Downtown Bruno episode, not the one he did with me on this show, but the one Bruno did with me and Doug Gilbert, where Bruno goes into detail about how Jeff went to prison for robbing the same bank twice and the details of how he got caught. I won't spoil it here, but go back and listen to that episode. It's hilarious, and it tells you everything you could ever want or need to know about Jeff Gaylord, the person outside the ring. He was something special, so to speak. But before we ask the final question, I just want to kind of point out this show to me is a shining example of how quickly things move in Memphis sometimes. Your average wrestling show, especially in this era, if you introduced a new character like Miss Simpson, the first week, you might have just seen her walk out there. In the second week, maybe she walks out there. Maybe she interferes. Maybe this time she just talks in a horrible British accent. But it's going to take 3, 4, maybe 5 weeks before she starts hitting someone with a broom, spraying tire foam in somebody's face, whatever. But in Memphis, this lady gets introduced in the first segment. By the third segment, she's breaking brooms and mops over people and trying to blind people with tire foam. In same said segment, another woman shows up to beat her ass. And by the end of the show, she's booked into a mixed tag match on that Monday night's card. I mean, just like that, she's in the mix. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I know it's kind of necessitated because, Memphis feels like it's been on life support for a few weeks here. But holy shit, that's a huge, that's a lot to happen in one episode. That's a lot for me to take in of like, oh, who's this lady? Oh, she's hot. Oh, she's a bitch. Oh my God, Miss Texas is killing her. Oh, wait a minute. Brian Christopher just killed Miss Texas. And now there's a tag match. What happened? It's like, it's definitely in fast forward most of the time here. Am I right in that, or am I just completely off base?
No, I mean, I think you're completely right. I was watching a WWE thing recently, like the evolution of Doink the Clown. Like it was like he appeared like in like August and didn't have a match until like January. Like, I mean, and you think about it, that's WWE. Like if you were to see that card, that main event card, before you watch Saturday morning show, you would be like, who the hell is Miss Simpson and why is she in the main event?
Yes.
And somehow she went from not even being on the show to being the main event of the show.
She made a huge splash though, man. That Jeff and Tony Falk match was absolutely wow.
Gene got it.
No,
I was waiting for Josh to go, and I made a huge splash after watching it. Ho!
And only Kool-Aid stains on my white tidy whities.
But there was
I remember as a young man buying some magazines off the newsstand that featured Miss Simpson, and let's just say I studied those quite closely in my teenage years.
Bergstrom would have been proud.
He would have wanted to beat me with a strap, but only across my buttocks, apparently. But anyway, so with this TV show have inspired you to buy a ticket to this Monday night's card back in 1993?
Hell no. like I was just telling Josh, I was like,
take your time, no rush.
I was like, first off, I would not want to go. Just like it would be like one of those things. It'd be like my parents like, we bought you tickets, and I don't want to go. Well, come on, we'll take you. It'll be fun. I've seen the matches. It will not be fun. Like when you've got the Marinos split up and they're opening the show. Like Tony Falk takes on one of the Marinos. I don't even know their names. Just Marino number 1. That's your opening match. And then you've got Danny Davis taking on Marino number 2.
Now, okay, I'm glad you addressed that because we're going to need to address it here. You'll see why in a moment. But if Meemaw's looking at a card and it's Nightmare Danny Davis defending a title against a Marino, how is she going to predict that one? Because that's a tough call right there.
That's my birthday weekend that these shows are on, by the way. If you go down there and watch both of them men try to pin themselves on my birthday weekend, I'm just going to disown you. You're going to come back and the locks are going to be changed. Just go ahead. Go watch them. They're going to both try to lose. I don't know how they're going to pull one of this other on top of each other or something, but yep.
It's going to have to be a time limit draw, right? Double DQ, double count out.
Both slip going into the ring.
They'll do that double down thing, and where they hit the
And
rope
never get up.
and knock
That'd be
each other.
they had to be stretchered out after a double down.
Yeah.
Yep, told you that's what's going to happen. I called it.
All right, Josh, where are you at on this?
I think if I live in Memphis, I'll show up. I mean, it's only like $5, right?
There's a reason though you're showing up.
Something like that, yeah.
But, well, fuck, you had reasons.
No, I'm saying
and yours
there's
was
one
no.
reason.
Yeah, well, don't worry about why I want to be there Monday. Just know I'll be there Monday.
Does it have anything to do with Miss Texas's threat?
Well, I mean,
That's the only reason I'm going. I was complete. I remember I was watching this, and for a long while now, I've been, as I watch the show, I'm like, all right, kind of keep a running tab of where you're at on Monday night's card so that you know by the end what your answer would be if you were asked. And then this one, I'm like, nope. Well, and then C.W. Bergstrom, nope. Jeff Gaylord, nope. And then she's like, I won't tear that maid outfit off you and show your chicken legs. I'm like, okay, I'm all right. I'm going. I'm sure she's not going to do it, but just in case, we need to be there.
So there's always a possibility that Gaylord or Bergstrom could get hung trying to get that belt off the pole. So there's that too.
Are you calling them stupid, Josh?
Well, I mean, it is what it is.
That's another instance, though, of the fast forward booking. Any other place in the world, these guys would have had at least one regular match on week 1 of the feud, and at least wait till week 2, 3, usually 4. But even Memphis, you think you'd at least wait till week 2 to do the belt on a pole match. Instead, we have him. But yeah, that was the thing. Like, we're already gonna have the damn pole up. We haven't been drawing squat. Let's just go ahead and go for broke here. Let's go ahead and let's have the 2 pole matches back to back, because why wouldn't we?
I do have a question though, and Josh, this is from more of a personal view on your side. We talk about my grandmother, but if you were to go, and I don't know the results, and I can imagine they didn't put the belt on the Marino, but how much shame would you feel in your heart if you were to go there and in the second match, you're like, Uncle Danny's got this wrapped up, and you're 1, 2, 3, and Marino's hands raised?
Well, back then I viewed all this shit as a contest.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know it was a work yet. So I would feel, anything can happen. But I'm not thinking the Marino's going over, no.
No. You just look at your uncle and burn his picture in front of him.
I was going to say, I'll speak for Josh here. If I go to reading these results and it says Bill Marino defeated Danny Davis for the middleweight title, I'm immediately calling Randy Bells when we get done recording. Be like, hey, man, you need to tell Danny Davis to ship you that Hall of Fame plaque back today. Like, rescind the offer. Let's just never mind. He's out.
That's pretty low down even for Danny. I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. Maybe back to managing. I don't know.
Well, all right, let's get to it. May 24th, 1993 at the Mid-South Coliseum. Drawing 850, so we gained 100 people from last week. I have to think.
They're going to strip a beautiful blonde.
Exactly. Jennifer Simpson gonna be naked down now.
And how many of those were giveaway tickets?
Nah, that it don't tell.
About that. How many pizza places did they do over the weekend?
A lot of tickets handed out at the softball game. So check this out. In the opening match, Tony Falk defeated Randy Rocket because Bill Marino was not there.
Awesome.
In the second bout, Nightmare Danny Davis defeated the Master of Terra #1 because Steve Marino was not there. So it appears the Marinos may finally be history for good.
Oh,
wow. They were like, look, we ain't gonna be split up now. you ain't busting us up. We ain't coming.
We wrestle tag team, or we don't wrestle, son. PG-13 defeated the Master of Terra #2 and Reggie B. Fine, because people don't wrestle twice on a USWA card. We couldn't have the Masters of Terra wrestled 2 times. Although it's funny though, I see why. Like, all right, well, look, we're gonna have to pull one Master of Terror out to wrestle Danny because we can't put Reggie B. Fine in a middleweight title match for a variety of reasons. Yeah. Well, here we go. Cue the music. Jeff Gaylord defeated Principal C.W. Bergstrom via disqualification in a strap on a pole match.
What the fuck?
How the hell do you get disqualified in a strap on a pole match? But he found.
I'm gonna say it's almost alarming to hear you say strap on a pole match. Like for a minute there, I was like, "What the hell are we doing here?"
I didn't even catch that until you said it. But yeah, that's. There's this week's reel for Facebook. He's strapped on a pole, and Jeff Gaylord had flashbacks to high school. He did not spare that rod, pal.
Yep, definitely spoiled some child in the front.
In the fifth match, now listen to this closely because you're going to question what I'm saying here, and then I'll explain it afterwards. In the fifth match, Brian Christopher and Miss Simpson defeated Nightmare Danny Davis and Miss Texas in a mixed tag team match.
Huh?
All right. So it was announced before the show, and this is legitimate because Eddie Marlin would sell it for weeks. On the way to one of the towns over the weekend, Jeff Jarrett was riding with Jeff Jarrett was riding with Eddie Marlin in the ring truck, and they had a wreck. The truck flipped more than once. So Eddie Marlin was not at this show. Eddie Marlin would not return for a few weeks. Jeff was unable to wrestle on this show, on a few shows here. And Jeff will actually come out on next week's TV to address it and encourage people to wear seatbelts, apparently. But yeah, Jeff and Eddie Marlin in a car accident, flipping the ring truck. There's no real details of what happened. Some people speculate Eddie Marlin fell asleep because it was coming back from a show in like Nashville on Saturday night. But yeah, anyway, Danny Davis subbing for Jeff Jarrett, and him and Miss Texas lose to Brian Christopher and Miss Simpson. So Miss Simpson is victorious in her debut match here in the USWA. So
wouldn't it be funny if Jeff comes out next week talking about the wreck, and then he's like, "It's kind of funny though, Dave. I can see numbers now. It's everything I see is in like mathematical equations. It's kind of weird."
Being Memphis, I can't. I'll be shocked if he doesn't come out and somehow blame the wreck on Brian Christopher. I know you put up something in our tire, you son of a bitch.
Is that tire foam? You put it on the bottom of it. You ain't supposed to put tire foam on the bottom, Dave.
Yeah, they should say Jeff was driving and he had delayed blindness from the tire foam. And then in the main event, the USWA Tag Team Champions, Simply Divine, Rex King, and Steve Dahl, with Burt Prentice, hefty bagged at ringside, defeated Jerry Lawler and Coco Beware by disqualification. So they get their fair shot, but they get themselves disqualified. So there you go. Now listen to this. The following Saturday, when this exact card made its way around to Nashville, they drew 850 people with this card. And now I will say this. They did alter the card, and I'll tell you the alterations they made, but they advertised the exact same card that you saw here in Nashville. How many people do you think it drew at the Nashville Fairgrounds in 1993?
200.
Richard?
200.
125 people came out to see Mark Freer defeat Tony Falk, Uncle Danny defeat Master of Terra #1, Jeff Gaylord to beat Principal C.W. Bergstrom by DQ in a strap-on a pole match. Okay, so they replaced the match entirely. We didn't get any mixed tag match. We got a single match where Brian Christopher defeated Moondog Spot. And then in the main event, we got the DQ with Simply Divine against Lawler and Coco. 125 people.
It was a shitty card on paper.
Crazy.
Like I honestly, when I saw that card, I was like, this looks like one of their worst. I know this sounds bad, and it sounds like I'm being negative. When I saw this card on the show this week, I was like, this has to be the worst card I have seen for them in a while. Like, it was bad. There was only one feature match that I would care anything about, and that was the Brian Jeff match, because it had the most heat. You know, they spent 20 minutes breaking brooms and spraying tire foam on people. But outside of that, there was nothing that really had any heat. It seemed like everything was just thrown together.
Josh Richards very adamant to let it be known. He don't want to see that match because of the hot chick. He just wants to see it because it's had heat.
Yeah.
The tire foam, you know.
Do we know who that young lady is? What's her name?
Well, I was asking
Yeah.
because we don't know who she
does
is.
she have an OnlyFans? I mean,
Does
so
she have
here's
current Facebook.
Here's some random notes from the dirt sheets as I was going through checking over some things. So Dave Meltzer reports that the principal gimmick is being developed in Memphis as a gimmick to come to the WWF to feud with the 1-2-3 Kid. Now, obviously, that didn't happen, but considering where the WWF was at the time in '93, I totally believe that. I know a lot of things that Meltzer says in present day and even back then gets proven false. I 100% believe that, and that makes so much sense of how they just pulled this gimmick out of thin air. And it's like, well, who on the card can we play the student? And like, fucking Gaylord, I guess. I mean, I don't know. And they're like, oh, God. All right, well, we'll play up the athlete aspect of it. You thought because I was a football player, I needed 60 licks instead of 6. I'm like, don't ever say that again.
I mean, it makes sense because like 2 years later, they did Dean Douglas.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, it's kind of like the Waylon Mercy, Bray Wyatt thing, how they just recycle gimmicks.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they just have gimmicks in mind. And
that one didn't land. Let's try it again with somebody else in a slightly different way. So, it makes sense. And then, also in the Observer, Dave says, it's interesting. A few weeks back when they brought in Spaceman Frank Hickey, they tried to say Hickey was one of the all-time greats in wrestling and compared to him to Ty Cobb and Red Grange in other sports, and mentioned him wrestling in the 1936 Olympics. And in his interview, Hickey even talked about beating Luthez in St. Louis. But in actuality, Frank Hickey was actually just a jobber for most of his career, which ended in the early 70s. Although he was a well-known jobber throughout the country, one of the only times I recall his name being mentioned on TV in the 80s was during a WWF broadcast when Vince McMahon asked Pat Patterson, who was the color commentator, who is the worst wrestler of all time? And without hesitation, Pat Patterson responded, definitely Spaceman Frank Hickey.
Damn.
He went on to say that with business in the USWA territory currently closing in on rock bottom in recent weeks, many are pointing the finger at Rex King and Steve Dahl being on top. These two do not work like Southern heels in the ring, and even though they do insult fans as much as possible, just aren't getting over. Can't say I can argue that one either, guys. I don't know how you feel, but
they don't want to look at the ring while the match is happening. Those fucking tights, I'm telling you. If they look different, I guarantee you it would get over. Those guys are so unlikable. Their attitudes are horrible.
Y'all be pretty good wrestlers if it wasn't for your face, attitude, just your whole character.
Well, no,
just change it all up.
Put them, in any kind of different tights. Black, because they're mega heels, trying to be something.
Yeah.
Thongs ain't working.
I think they can work, but those tights turn it off, and they just don't come across as,
I mean, I'm sure in their mind, and maybe some other people's minds, are like, oh my God, 2 dudes wrestling in thongs is going to get so much heat. But there's a fine line between oh my God, I hate these guys. And oh my God, I don't want to see this. I don't want to have to look at this for the whole match. And, apparently Vince liked it because when they went to WWF as Well Done, they kept the exact same outfits. They just added some lips across the front and back.
Can't imagine the people on top of that rung at that time.
Yeah, so that tells you a lot about Vince that we would find more about later. But anyway, I thought this week's show was interesting. But like Richard said, it was it wasn't long on matches for sure. That's the thing too about when you introduce a few new characters in one show, it's going to be promo heavy. It's going to be, clips and promos and stuff. So maybe space it out a little better. But then again, when you're having to fill in 2 separate matches on the card with Marinos who haven't been here in a couple of weeks and then don't show up, times are pretty tough. So I guess you just kind of got to do what you can. But
I ain't gonna be there, Eddie. We're above this.
You have definitely Amber Hearded the bed when the Marinos are like, no, we can't do this anymore.
This is embarrassing, guys. We only wrestle in big crowds, and Hayseed, Georgia somewhere or whatever, or Kentucky where they came from. But it looks like we're finally shut of the Marinos, I assume. Then again, you never know. Hell, they could turn up 2 weeks from now. I'm constantly surprised at the people who leave and come back. But I don't think the Marinos are going to have the cachet of a Gilbert, Doug, or Eddie, or Moondogs, or even Harlem Knights. Even though that did seem kind of like a one-off for those guys, apparently. Because right about now, they're getting ready to turn up on the WWF TV has been on a mission.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust the Marinos carrying a Gilbert's bag to the trunk. There's something would come up missing. Something like,
why is this big rip in my bag? Oh hell, there was a nail in the parking lot.
Well, all right, guys, we got through another one. It's going to be interesting to see where they go from here, and we'll be here next week for it. So for Josh and Richard, I'm Gene Jackson. Thanks for checking out another episode, the 24th. To be exact, of the Retro Wrestling Review Podcast. And be sure, when you get done listening to this, go check out P3 Radio. These guys are always entertaining on there. There's no telling what sort of shenanigans. Anything on a recent P3 Radio episode you want to plug real quick before we sign all the way out?
We talked about Jardians, the commercial, for a little bit, and then
you don't want to take that medicine, by the way.
Yeah, there's a lot of side effects.
Your tank could rot off.
Yeah, lower limb loss.
Limb off.
Well, there you go, folks. If you're taking that medication right now, make sure you listen to P3 Radio and find out just what risks you're taking by taking that medicine, because there's no two finer medical authorities than Josh Briley and Richard Mullican of P3 Radio. Thanks, folks. We'll see you again next week. Hey, folks, before we get out of here, I'd just like to take a moment to tell you we appreciate you checking out the podcast. And if you would, do us a favor, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're listening to this right now, wherever you're watching it. If you'll just take a moment to either subscribe, to rate and review, let us know what you think. We hope you're liking it, but even if you're not, let us know what you would like to see changed, and we will take that in consideration as we move forward. So we really appreciate any feedback we can get. Also, we just want to say how proud we are to be a part of the WrestleCopia brand of wrestling podcast. Ray Russell brings you something for everyone over at WrestleCopia.com. Check out all the great wrestling podcasts available over there right now. And for all things related to the Retro Wrestling Review Podcast, you can go to USWAPodcast.com and you can find links to everything we have there, our Facebook, our Twitter /X, our TikTok, our Instagram, our merch store. That's right. We've got shirts. We've got hats. We've got phone cases. We've got all kinds of great stuff. And it's all right there at our store. And you can find a link to it at USWAPodcast.com. There's a link to the YouTube channel we're associated with, the Retro Wrestling Archive. You can find all that there. And if you have questions for us, if you saw something on the show that you have a question about or a comment about, if you've got some info to answer a question we have, or you had a question you want us to read on the air, if you want to work out an ad swap, if you want to have any kind of communication with us, you can go and send an email to uswapodcast@outlook.com, and I will get back to you just as quickly as humanly possible. And if you're a fan of Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert, and if you've heard it, I know you are, check out DougGilbertPodcast.com for all things related to Doug's podcast. You can find links to our Facebook page for the show, our Twitter. You can find links to Doug's social media, his Twitter, his Facebook. All that's available there, plus a link to the YouTube channel. And if you have a question for Doug you would like for me to ask him on the air, you can send that question to DougGilbertPodcast@outlook.com, and we will get it added and it will get answered in a future episode just as quickly as we can work it in. So we appreciate you listening. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you here next week for more.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/wrestlepod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Hi, this is Mike Needham, host of the Reckless Abandon Podcast with Mike Needham. We invite you to jump on your favorite podcast platform and search for the Reckless Abandon Podcast and give us a listen. I'm sometimes joined by a part-time podcaster, part-time co-host, and full-time wife, Tiffany Nicole. And when you get the wife on there, sometimes that can lead to some very interesting conversation. We talk wrestling, we talk pop culture, we talk local events in West Tennessee, local happenings in West Tennessee, and a ton of other stuff. I would like to tell you that this is a show about nothing, but Seinfeld already has that copyrighted, so I cannot tell you that our podcast is a show about nothing. But be sure to check out the Reckless Abandon Podcast. Find us on Facebook. Also, look up the Microgroup Podcasting family on Facebook and see some of our other podcasts we have out there. Until next time, make good choices, and always remember, no dollar, no dice.